Hello and welcome to this, our exciting final episode of Political Party. I'm Hamish.
And I'm Tim. With us at the moment is our guest, first-time guest, Kevin. Introduce yourself.
He's come a long way.
Yeah, hi, my name's Kevin. I've come out all the way from Werribee because I am such a huge fan of this show, and I know this sounds sarcastic because it might be a little bit.
Good to have you on.
Awesome. So, yeah, listeners, thanks for tuning in. This is our last episode for this semester. Hamish is bringing the show back next semester, and he's dreaming
stay
up
tuned
ideas
for
and
more
stuff.
details.
So, what we're going to start off talking about today is we're talking about the future, and we've got a special 2-hour show today. So, we're going to talk about a lot of different things that can shape and influence the future.
When we say shape and influence, we mean horribly murder and cause extinction level events, because we're optimists.
Speaking of horrible murder, Avanti's here.
Welcome to the show, Avanti.
Avanti is probably our most recurring guest now.
Probably.
Because she's in the inner circle. Do you want to reintroduce yourself, Avanti?
I'm the unaffiliated lib, basically. There we go. That's an easy summary.
No,
she's
you
conservative
are.
as all hell.
Pro Margaret
She's
Thatcher,
my
there we
polar
go.
opposite.
Oh,
wow.
God, pro-Margaret
I'm
Thatcher.
one of those. John Major screwed up big time.
He did, and Tony Blair also screwed up because Tony Blair sacrificed the principles of the Labour Party.
Oh no, see, that's why I agree with Blair.
Blair
That
was
was
an
good
idiot.
politics. It's like a long continuing Sarkozy's
He's
policy.
like, let's go invade the Middle East. Then he's like, next minute, ambassador to the Middle East, the same region he screwed
Oh,
up.
come on, K-Rudd. This is
Oh.
basically
What
what
are you talking
Western
about?
politicians do. They
Hey,
screw
don't be
things up and go
talking
back
shit
to
about
them.
K-Dud. I don't like the Labour Party at all.
I call him K-Dud.
Kevin Rudd was Australia's best internationalist.
Kevin Rudd is a freaking top bloke. I really hope he gets a Secretary General of UN, just because he'll be so insufferably smug and hilarious to watch.
At least-
And I'm going
he-
to say bye for 5 minutes because some Melbourne uni people have turned up and need
Ooh.
help finding the place.
Correct.
Ugh.
So,
Melbourne.
we're going
Yes,
to talk
there's-
about the future of
But we've
Australia.
got a special gimmick for this, the last show. We're having far more guests than ever before, and gradually they'll
that's
trickle
right.
in.
Yeah, we're having a party in the studio, and
Party.
people are rocking up now. It's going to be awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a third party, I must say this is going to end really, really, really well.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
oh, of course. This can only work out well.
Only success. So, without any further ado, let's get talking about the future, shall we?
Hamish, what do you think the future holds for domestic Australia?
For domestic Australia, well, I think we're kind of screwed, but I think everyone's kind of screwed. Because what we're going to be seeing is increased technological development that will raise the minimal standard of living, but at the same time, a lot of this technology will replace many jobs, like, jobs that are monotonous functions that can easily be replaced by machines. Like, dishwashing jobs will require fewer personnel. Manufacturing is going to require fewer personnel because we totally had a manufacturing industry to get shrunk. Mining's going to be all like robots and whatnot. So basically, you people had better enjoy your jobs while they last, because society will be separated into two classes. There'll be an upper class of investors and creators who will produce the fuel for the machines, or produce like what they build, or produce like original content for the machines, or own them. And then there'll be the lower class, which is freaking everyone else. And yeah, enjoy your two-class society, because it's going to happen.
Well,
And-
do you think that? So you guys have read the intergenerational report.
Yep.
Do you
Most of
think that with the advance of technology and the replacement of these monotonous jobs with said technology, do you think that because we're going to have that aging population, similar problem to what Japan is going through now, do you reckon that it's actually a good thing that we're going to have this advance in technology?
Kind of. It's a good thing. Like, some of these technologies that we're developing can be put to use in aged care. Like, robotic exosuits for old people would be extremely useful.
Iron
That
Grandma.
would be extremely useful. It's like
yeah, I
Crisis
grandma.
3.
It's like Crisis.
The geriatric Avengers.
Yes.
Speaking of geriatric, we have a new guest here.
Yes. James, do you want to introduce yourself? No? Okay. James is just sitting in. That's cool. Yeah, so, Kevin, what do you think about the future?
What do I think about the future? Well, we're fucked.
That's
Good.
that's two on the side of
Yes,
yes,
no,
fucked. I
good-
like
good
the
on
I
you.
like the optimism.
I previously stated that I align myself as a political pessimist.
Yes, it's true.
Because every time I think, I'm really hopeful about politics, probably 5 minutes later, I realize the state of what actually is going on.
You don't look to freaking politics for good social change. You look to literally anyone else.
Yeah, you look to things like, Facebook for your slacktivism and stuff like that. That's the sort of, like, short-term
Guys, still good.
happiness we're looking for.
We can make a difference while sitting in our chairs and clicking on links.
Precisely.
One like equals one prayer.
Oh, God.
If you scroll past this, you are a terrible person and going straight to hell.
I'm gonna jump in there. I'm a big proponent of fuck slacktivism and stuff, but I think it works. Like we saw this most explicitly with the Coney 2012 thing. Like nobody left their rooms apart from like putting stickers on street signs, but like that created like the Obama administration invested like millions and millions and millions of dollars into tracking down this guy purely because of social media.
It's only millions. It's like a drop in the American bucket.
Yeah, in Australia, the Lock the Gate Alliance is an organisation trying to stop fracking in Queensland and now in Victoria because they're trying to dig up Gippsland. And they have spread their message throughout Facebook.
Oh.
Facebook's a good medium for like non-government organisations who are perhaps small to spread their message, to spread their awareness, which in turn creates a better outcome and a better amount of power for that.
Creating awareness and slacktivism, in my opinion, are two different things. Like,
Yeah.
if you're creating awareness, you're actually legit. You're trying to get, like, your supporters to do stuff. Whereas if you're a slacktivist, you're not doing anything. You're just sitting there clicking like as all this stuff shows up on your newsfeed. Which, yes, it's probably going to help
But that's
with...
raising awareness.
It is.
Slacktivism is about awareness.
Yeah, that's true. Slacktivism itself is about awareness. It's a difference between rhetoric and call to arms. Like, that's why, unfortunately, that's why those sort of right-wing Reclaim Australia parties are doing so well, is because they have this sort of effort to do that, to go, well, 19th of July, we're going to, I don't know, march on blank and blank, and show everyone that blank and blank is, strong enough to counter blank and blank.
Slacktivism's, like, in between, like, rhetoric and actually doing something.
Yeah, it's like this, and then that's it for you. You don't have to do anything else. We're not going to provide another outlet for this. You can find it if you want to, but, all we're doing is collecting likes.
It's like Schrodinger's cat. You're simultaneously being helpful and not helpful.
Yes.
But there's also donations that come out of slacktivism. Like people make huge amounts of money out of like slacktivism campaigns. Like we saw the MND Ice Bucket Challenge. That wasn't really activism, but people were able to gather far more money than ever humanly foreseen for the MND Foundation of Australia and the ALS in the US. So like I think slacktivism works. Yeah.
Well, I think to some extent I certainly agree. It does have the purpose of raising awareness. It does what it intends to do, but I think it, in some ways maybe the not really circumstances, but maybe its purpose is misplaced. Like with the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, the sort of meaning as to why they were doing the Ice Bucket Challenge eventually got lost.
Yeah,
As
exactly.
soon it was just something that people did.
Just like to briefly interrupt you for a moment, but speaking of Slack and a cold reception, we have a new guest. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Nice to be here.
Please introduce yourself.
I'm Sam.
Sam.
I'm University of Melbourne student.
So you're the one who Avanti keeps sending her messages to when, like, she sent them to us by mistake, but she's trying to send them to you.
Yeah, probably. I dread to think what you might have seen on there, but let's,
Anyway,
between us.
that's enough of that. Let's get back
I
to...
am not that bad.
Yes, you are. So let's get back to talking about the future.
Future of Australia. I reckon that Australia is going to change for the better. I'm optimistic about that. At the moment, our government is they're not only fucking us over, but they're fucking us over so badly to the point where I think people are becoming conscious of it.
That's how the upper class works. Their goal is fuck over everyone so that they can maintain power. That's what I'd do if I was upper class, like, I'm just saying.
but do it without them noticing.
Oh, of course.
Like, you
No,
don't
that's
want-
what they could do, though. Because the upper class controls, like, the media and whatnot, they have the ability to do this and keep people blind, keep their, like, heads in the gutter or whatever.
I
know, it's
think
like-
that huge like climate efforts from China and the US are going to rub off on Australia. And when
Yeah.
people realize that a green world isn't a special interest but a necessity, I reckon within 50 years the Greens will take majority in the parliament and then the world will be safe.
That's a very optimistic view, but it's definitely, like, climate change technology is definitely more than just a special interest now. It's a major industry. It's making a lot of money, and furthermore, it's actually becoming competitive with fossil fuels.
No, it's not.
It's
No,
No,
it's
it's not.
Here's the thing. In many places it is, except for places where there is a supply of cheap and readily accessible coal, namely Australia, but that's about the only time now that fossil fuels are more cost efficient than solar energy.
Fossil fuels are more cost efficient in almost every way. They're the most powerful economic industry in the entire world. They're increasing in value while decreasing in
Are they really
amount.
increasing in value? You've got
Yeah.
fracking and stuff that's causing a market saturation.
Well, I don't think that's causing a saturation in
We
the
saw
market
the
at all.
massive oil price drop.
Yeah,
earlier.
But the oil price drop, I think we can relate a little bit more to sort of the power play in the Middle
That was
East.
100% politics.
Yeah.
That had nothing to do with the market.
Oh,
That was just a drop in
there
artificial
was a
scarcity.
bit of the market to do with it
No.
because it was the Saudis trying to shut down fracking. They were trying to lower the price of the oil enough so
Right,
that fracking
that was
companies...
political. The Saudis.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
it really
It's
political?
The
It's economic.
Saudis teamed up with the US and decided to produce more than they were charging for the oil to try and combat the oil industry in Russia.
Teamed up with the US. They were trying to screw over the US by reducing the price of oil to the point where fracking is no longer profitable.
To me,
They're not in the same market.
to me, what Saudi Arabia did it reminds me of when my parents tell me that I can't have something, and I just go crazy with things. It was politics in the way you would expect a 3-year-old to handle politics.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's what caused the market saturation. It was the majority cause. I'm not going to argue and say that the Saudi Arabia trying to combat the rise of fracking is not one of their motives, because I don't know enough about it. But I can say for sure that politics is a major factor in that.
Speaking of crazy, we have another guest here.
Yes, we have many guests in the studio, all of which are going to give us their perhaps questionable views in the next 2 hours. We're going to go to a song, and I think that this whole politics of oil is a nice springboard. We're going to talk about international relations and the future of that after our first song, which is about finding a world that you can love even if it's within yourself. Or
Now that's deep. That's 3 deep, 5 me.
Oh.
Hello and welcome back to Political Party, the show where we discuss the future and how screwed we all are.
Cool. So we're going to talk about international relations and the future of superpowers, who's going to be powerful, which countries are going to die,
China.
etc. I think we'll start with Sam. What are your thoughts on the future of international relations?
Well, that's a nice simple one to start us off. China.
Yeah.
Still looking good. I don't think they're going to die anytime soon.
Yeah.
Rise of India, possibly overblown.
Okay.
They really need to get their act together
Yeah,
if they're going to do anything remotely relevant.
and also not being in such intermittent conflict almost all the time, constantly for the entirety of the last century or so.
Although India are developing an arms industry, the conflicts with Pakistan could give them a chance to impress potential customers.
True, it's nice to have somewhere to showcase your brand, road test it out, maybe.
The Israelis
give
have been
potential
doing it for
customers a chance
30
to
years.
find mine. Yeah, but there are a lot more problems there. A rising arms industry is one thing, that would have a lot of competition, and when you've got that much ingrained corruption in so many levels of your government, I guess it hasn't stopped China so much.
Yeah, I don't even think the development of an arms industry is a bad thing, because with an arms industry, there comes a lot of other industries, like, metallurgy, composite materials development, jet engines, leads to an indigenous aircraft industry. Indigenous industry in general benefits from the arms sector and technological development as a whole. So I don't think it's that bad that these places are developing arms industries.
They're an increasingly educated and increasingly technologically savvy nation. I think they've got the highest rate of technological innovation in the world. We're still talking about India and China, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're both doing wonders in those sectors. Despite the fact that they still have they're two of the largest countries with poverty rates and
Yeah.
poor human rights and stuff.
I don't know. China does too much copying for its own good. The problem with Chinese companies is that they're very risk averse. They don't like developing and selling new things because it could potentially backfire horribly and customers won't buy them because they only buy established brands. So that's why they're going to do stuff like, I don't know, I was listening to the news today and I heard them say They're doing stuff like freaking taking Australian cherries and like copying the boxes, but not copying the cherries. So people eat them and they're like, ugh, these don't taste great. I'm getting sick from them.
Oh god, that doesn't sound good.
Like taking like games and movies and stuff, wholesale copying them, like not even pretending to innovate at all. Just literally copy paste. Yeah, we made this. It's cool, guys.
Those things can sometimes make surprisingly and somewhat depressingly good profits, though.
Yes, no, that's how like Japan built up its industries and Korea.
Yeah, well, you want to look at the cherry incident again. You've got the Australian government's just released figures saying that in actual fact counterfeit cherry products with Australian logos on it, was in news.com the other day, are actually now making more profit than the Australian cherries are overseas. But I don't think that, to be honest, you want to look at this about the development of China. The reality, I think, is not that China is risk averse. The difference is, though, is that they're also coming into the world of development. In actual fact, if you want to look at it, China is one of the largest developing nations in regards to creating new technology, creating new types of methods. I mean, the difference is, though, is that it's just not leaving the Chinese market yet. But the Chinese market in itself is like America, though. Half the world is never going to see the innovations of China because half the world doesn't need the innovations of China. I think that ultimately, though, that's the thing. You're not going to see half of these developments, half of these improvements outside of China because, quite simply, most of them are designed for an internal market. It's interesting that you mentioned India before and their arms industry because, to be honest with you, whilst it's nice to see that they're starting to develop it, it's still a bit of a joke.
Yes, it took them like 40 years to develop an aircraft.
Well, it's not even actually developing an aircraft as such as it is taking. So I can understand that, but as much you got to look at whether or not it's actually an Indian aircraft, because at the moment it walks like a Ukrainian aircraft, it talks like a Russian aircraft, and to be honest with you, they've probably borrowed a few bits of China too. And that's the reality, though, is that at the moment India is actually not at that point where China is. It's not at the point where South Korea or Japan. It's not at any real point compared to any of the actual major players in its own internal arms industry at the moment. They are buying other people's concepts and they are actually making indigenous copies, or not indigenous copies, but indigenous licenses of those products.
Oh, the Tejas is actually a legitimate Indian aircraft. It's not copied off anything.
Well,
although the jet engine is like, being developed with extensive Russian help, which basically means, yeah, guys, this is how you make a jet engine. We're going to tell you the whole thing.
Yeah, so, it's basically, what it's really saying, though, is that we're trying to build our own internal arms industry to basically make up for the fact that we need to actually make our own weapons. But it's also not necessarily actually at that point where it's kind of developing the weapons themselves.
Fun fact, exactly. Apparently India had they realized they had a crisis when they discovered they only had enough ammunition for 2 weeks of combat. Speaking of crisis, some more of our guests have arrived.
Yes. We've got Xavier, who's come in for the first time.
Hey.
And we have Jessica and Iris out in the lounge.
Iris, will she allow us to see clearly?
I
There's
see. Our first pun of the day.
I see.
Okay.
I did say oil. It's true.
The oil one, that's a staple of the show, isn't it?
Excellent.
The thing with a lot of Chinese technological development is that it's brought on by Western manufacturers bringing their factories in and saying, right, this is how we make stuff. You guys got to make stuff because it's cheaper. And then there's a lot of technology transfer. We're not so willing to put our advanced technology manufacturing in China, but I know in Japan there's lots of it, major aerospace contractors like Boeing and whatnot outsource the production of small and vital elements to Japan, which is important because jet engines are one of the major areas where the Chinese are behind the West in innovation and development. They know, I'm pretty sure they've copied all the blueprints. They know what needs to go in a good jet engine, but they don't actually know how to build it. They don't know the techniques required.
Well, yeah, once again, though, the secret to any real country's ability to actually technologically evolve is, once again, also having the people to do this. It's the same in a way, it's the same with Australia and developing its own submarine. Senator David Johnson's come out saying that Australia needs about 200 people, roughly, 200 properly, fully trained nautical engineers to build a submarine. Australia's currently got about 5 of them. Bob, Gary, Glenn, Dave, and I think it was Jeanette. They're all sitting in South Australia at the moment. But once again, though, they can be perfectly good at it. But the reality is that you need the numbers, you need the people with the qualifications, and you need the people with the skills. and at the moment, neither China nor a lot of these countries actually has those. But the thing that I think is the most important to note is that China's creeping up. And the way that they're doing it is much in the same way as Japan actually, when they originally modernized. They're hiring Americans, they're hiring Europeans to come to their country. There's a great book actually about the Chinese aviation industry and how, in general though, they're hiring American pilots who are only being paid as much as McDonald's employees in America flying planes. Yeah, that's it's an interesting revelation that's how much they're earning. But that's allowed the Chinese to actually go over and offer these experienced pilots and experienced members of the aviation industry in America to go actually and come over to China and build this modern industry. And to a degree, it's actually now probably better regulated and probably better maintained than a lot of other industry, than possibly even the American air industry, quite simply because they're throwing the capital in which America doesn't have to actually invest in it.
Quickly, I guess you could call this capital flight. Guys?
All right, there's another one.
Guys?
Good to get it out of the way.
He
Get
did
out of your
not
system.
get one laugh from that, and there's a crowd of people in the studio right now.
Look, you're all laughing on the inside. I can see the smiles.
So funny, I forgot to laugh. Yeah.
Not really the high point of puns.
Was that another one? Because I didn't get it.
High point, flying, capital flight.
We're past capital flight.
Speaking of capital flight, Russia.
What
Hope
about
they're
Russia,
enjoying
Hamish?
Well,
Tell us about Russia.
the way
Are
I
they on the
see it-
rise, or is it all a lie?
It depends. Once again, you find that Russia's in the same situation they've been historically, where they have this enormous potential, but they're going to get screwed over. Pretty much the whole entire history of Russia can be summed up with the phrase, and then things got worse. And what we're seeing today is no exception. The Russian oil industry is getting absolutely messed up by what the Saudis and the Americans are doing with oil prices, by fracking. Fracking's bringing a massive amount of competition to Russia's previously dominant position over the European market for oil, which is really affecting their ability to sell oil and manage their economy. And the Russian oil economy is built on oil. It's dangerous putting that much dependency in a single commodity. What Russia needs to do is start to exploit its massive unexplored regions and search for minerals and stuff. I know that Siberia is very rich in minerals. They should do what Australia did and move into raw resource development and capitalize on their low labor costs but relatively high expertise base and technology base, because a lot of Russian industries were still relatively intact after the fall of the Soviet Union. They still export a lot of military hardware.
I think, to be honest with you, you're putting a little bit too much hope on a Russian mineral industry. I mean, it's been a major part of what they do for a very long time. I mean, even North Korea's got working camps now, cutting down logs and digging out
Working
coal.
camps. No, they're happy, fun holiday camps.
Oh, happy fun holiday camps. Sorry, super happy, glorious, benefit the leader by digging coal out of the ground camp. But the reality is, though, is that actually the oil and gas industry in Russia is probably as strong as it always has been, quite simply because it's got to because Europe relies on it.
And China now.
Well, yeah, China also is getting a significant amount. But the problem with the Russian industries in general, though, is also because is the nature of Russia in its own right. It's not one country. It's actually just a loose confederation of states, dumas, and so on and so forth, which also means that it's a nation built that it's built upon corruption. Corruption exists as a way of life. And it's also what's ultimately crippled Russia throughout its entire life. Yeah. It's the grandeur that actually makes it successful, but it's also the very same thing that is going to create a glass ceiling as such. Really.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree. I guess you could say that with all of Russia's local administrations being called Soviets, it's a union of Soviets.
Whenever he says, I guess you could say, you just know to sort of turn off for a little while.
But puns about Russia are a bit vulgar, I think.
Oh.
We must go and make puns about other topics.
That's beautiful.
It's starting to seem like you haven't prepared.
I'm going to be rushing through my list of Russia puns. You're all in big
Please
trouble.
tell me they're making an appearance for our exam. Please. I want Pete to mark you down for this now.
You want him to mark me down for this? Well, speaking of being marked down, hello,
I wanted
Avanti.
to do it too.
Genius.
Ultra conservative Avanti, tell us about our next song.
So, this is a personal favourite of mine from Billy Joel. We Didn't Start the Fire, if you don't know all the lyrics by now. Please, you are peasants. So basically it ranges in important events, according to Billy Joel, from 1949 to 1989, and it's great and it's life and sing along and scream it out if you're in your cars.
Was he
or at
cajoled
home.
into choosing that name? Because Billy Joel.
Yes, Hamish. That is exactly what happened.
Why is no one laughing?
I'm going to start a
Because
fire
that was a, that
somewhere.
was,
I'm
a-
just-
that was
I'm
a
just
horrible
gonna, like-
attempt at humour.
Oh, and welcome back to Political Party on this, the last show, where we tell you about how terrible the future is. And speaking of terrible, we have two new guests.
Nice
Please
to
introduce
meet you,
yourselves.
I'm Xavier. I've been on the show briefly once before. Yeah, and it's pretty fun.
I'm Jess. I am a total newbie, both to the show and to radio things in general.
I'm glad you showed up just in time.
You didn't have a Xavier pun, and yeah.
Finally, I make people laugh. It was only a matter of time.
Hamish has done it. So, we're talking about climate change because I run the schedule. And
Climate change
I'm
is a bit of
shoving
a-
this in because
Climate change is a bit
everyone.
of a hot topic at the moment, I hear.
Oh. So, the problem that the broad problem we're seeing at the moment is that we are burning a finite amount of hydrocarbons, using it to gain political capital, using it to entrench deep underlying poverty in a lot of
Seems a
developing
bit
nations.
cold-hearted.
Creating dependence. We find a lot of the powerful states at the moment are surviving off pure rentierism of this oil. There's this is propagating a global elitism,
I know.
etc.
I think Tay ran their oil industries pretty well.
Iran pun.
Well-
Yeah, you missed the country name in that one.
Look,
Yeah.
I was hoping you guys would figure it out, and clearly I pinned my hopes correctly.
That was a bit niche, but we got the laugh.
Speaking of which, how did I get from Syria to Uzbekistan?
I walked.
Shut up. While we're on the topic of anti-jokes, here's one of my favorites from this week. Why can't you see elephants hiding in trees? Because they're really good at it.
So, at
Anyway.
the moment, Australia just cut the RET. The major party duopoly just went, yeah, no, we don't need a renewable energy target. Just sort of make it achievable. Just go in the background there. So
This
that
was
happened.
after the past government laboured to sign certain international protocols.
Yeah.
What you hear in the background is everyone crying.
Sorry, one of our guests
Everyone's
is breaking
crying
down.
now.
Not everyone, but one in particular. Anyway,
6-degree rise in global temperatures will kill humanity. 2.3 degrees is the point of no return, and 5.6 degrees of Celsius of temperature rise is expected within the next 85 years. So
apparently,
let's talk about how you stop this from fucking happening.
Cool fact, apparently the estimated half-life of humanity is 1,000 years, meaning in 1,000 years there'll be no sign that humans ever existed.
True.
Actually, I've got a really crazy theory. What if 66 million years ago, dinosaurs became sentient, and then a million years later engaged in a genocidal war against each other that caused all the other dinosaurs to go extinct? What if that's why dinosaurs are extinct?
Conspiracy week was last week.
I like your puns better.
Jessica, what do you think about climate change? Can we
Break the
can
ice?
we come back from this?
Can we break
Will
the ice?
they come back from this?
To be honest, I think Australia is messing up big time. We've continually managed to ignore the fact that we are surrounded by countries that essentially would look to us as the big, the guiding point for what they do on climate change. And we've tried to wriggle our way out of every international agreement we've signed. There is, in fact, a clause in one of them that's colloquially known as the Australia Clause, because we made it so that our targets would be less than everyone else. It's not surprising that we've backed down on the renewable energy targets, but it is hellishly disappointing in terms of our future. We're a little bit in trouble here.
Dave?
I think we in the developed world, in Australia, in North America, Europe, aren't that incentivized to act against climate change, because we're not the ones who are going to suffer from it. It's the people in sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, people near the equator line, where they're already struggling.
Especially
regions.
micronations.
Yeah,
like
micronations.
tiny
and stuff.
islands.
Well, they're just going to disappear entirely.
Yeah.
But, even larger states that are already struggling to produce enough food once, the drought and climate change sets in,
Here's something
they're
interesting.
pretty much going to be a great die-off.
Yeah.
There's going to be a mass influx of refugees from these regions into the global north. Like, we think we have a problem with border control now. Just you wait 80 years.
Apparently, something really crazy that's happening is climate change is screwing up the glaciers in Tibet. So those glaciers will mean that big rivers in India won't flow as well, and that's going to cause a lot of deaths because turns out the world's second most populous nation depends on those big rivers for survival.
Right, and same with a lot of Southeast Asian nations on the Mekong in China. Once that kind of stops flowing right through to the sea, and China attempts to control and redirect that water flow with damming projects and stuff, there's going to be massive issues over water
They should
security.
get the Dutch on it. The Dutch have way too much experience with this kind of thing, with keeping their country a country when it has no right to be above water.
Well, yeah. Speaking of the Dutch,
Geographically, it has no right to be above water. Is what I'm saying. Not no Dutch people
Someone
are
call
cool.
him out,
Politically?
please.
Dutch people are cool. I like Dutch people. I'm just saying their country is like.
First your comments about Jews and now the Dutch. Man.
What are you talking about? I said nothing about Jews. Jews are lovely people. Don't hurt me, New World Order.
No. Throw back to last week. Listen to last week for Hamish's racist Jew jokes.
Not even racist and not even... You'll notice I gave a disclaimer afterwards, but that's enough trying to dig myself out of this hole and only falling deeper
moving
into it.
on.
If you're in a hole
Moving
with a shovel,
swiftly
you should
onward. The
generally
problem with
stop
Australia
digging.
is that our economy depends heavily, or not heavily, but fossil fuels have played a major part in Australia's economy. For better or worse, we have made a lot of money out of coal and oil. Well, not so much oil anymore, but still coal. We continue to make a ton of money out of coal. We export it to our neighbours. We export it to China, to India. We are helping them to continue to live their coal-burning lifestyles. And our power generation depends on it because solar power is becoming much, much cheaper. It's becoming much more efficient, but it still isn't... apparently a study said that solar power is one of the most efficient kinds of power in the world now. There's only one or two types of power that's more efficient. You know what one of them is? Freaking having big open-cut coal mines next to your coal-fired power plants. Guess where that's happening? Australia. For those of you who couldn't be bothered guessing.
But what do you think about wind power and where that's going with recent comments?
I think
I'm
wind
kind of-
turbines are incredibly hideous.
I'm kind of blown away by people's
I
thoughts
actually
on this
think-
topic.
I'm kidding.
I actually think they're actually kind of beautiful.
They are beautiful.
Against a really nice landscape because it's like this hybridization between man and the land we're part of.
Yep.
It's just really cool.
If we painted them blue or whatnot instead of white, they'd blend in to nature
or
better.
you can just decorate them, and paint them in really cool colors. Make them look less ugly. for
I
people
mean,
that don't
look,
like them.
if you're going to complain about wind turbines causing headaches and whatnot, why don't we talk about the fire that happened in the coal mine?
why don't we talk
in
about emphysema
Latrobe
and
Valley?
lung disease in Morwell?
Yeah, why don't we talk about that that's far worse a problem because wind turbine headaches aren't even proven by the scientific method. Whereas I think we can all agree it's pretty bad when coal catches fire and releases toxic gases everywhere.
Speaking of danger, Hamish and I, or perhaps I, was guilty of creating a mostly sympathetic panel in this climate change issue, so now we've got our liberal back. Chime in.
Well, I think that, to be honest with you, you want to look at it. I definitely do believe in climate science. I think that it's a joke, to be honest, that we entertain people that don't. But I think that one of the biggest issues is that everyone in this room so far has come in and just said, oh, it's the government's fault, it's the government's fault. Well, I think the reality is, though, is that if you want to look at it, go around every country on Earth, and we actually find that government is a completely incompetent regulator at things which are not only considered controversial by their populations, but at the same time, though, can't actually prove to have direct economic incentive. It's something that you can't really test, so that makes government incompetent. What we're actually seeing, though, is private business, private enterprise are actually leading the climate debate in most of the countries that they're acting in. Yeah. A lot of corporations are in actual fact practicing a lot of responsibility on this issue. It's not to say that they all are. There's definitely a fair few that need to improve on themselves. But I think, though, that in general, government should be instead designed to facilitate environmental practices and environmental standards within industries and trying to encourage them to make the changes rather than trying to do this punitive standard approach that governments respond to how governments respond to these issues.
To build on what you're saying, 10 years ago, there was no way anyone would ever have thought China would be leading the battle against climate change by producing massive amounts of renewable energy generation methods. But here it is now. China is one of the world's leading producers of renewable energy generators, for want of a better word. because the private sector drove them forward in that area. And you're seeing it in the USA as well, where these countries have massive private sectors that provide renewable energy, and they're just continuing to get bigger, lower the prices. They're just getting bigger and bigger, and it wasn't because of government action. It was because of the private sector.
I think that one of the problems that we're actually facing is the environmental lobby itself does as much damage to the issue as a lot of other organizations, quite simply because they don't know how to sell things. And that is one of the problems. Fundamentally, the way to actually get people to hop on an issue and is actually talk about what you can get out of doing something, talk about how you can actually make a profit out of it, talk about how you can actually develop and grow more out of it than actually threatening about how, the seawater's going to rise, climate refugees and all that type of thing. People don't want to hear it. People don't care about those issues because as far as they're concerned, they can close the border, they can fix those type of things. You can build a sandbag, you can do what the Dutch did. But the problem is, though, is that these don't resolve the issues. The way to resolve issues is, as everything has always done, profit motive. By creating an actual profit motive to encourage people to actually make changes rather than just lurking over them with a science report going, the world's going to end.
The problem
I agree.
The problem with stuff like environmentalism, like with socialism, here I am just expanding the topic, is that this stuff relies too much on the goodness of human nature. You don't achieve change by relying on the goodness of human nature. You achieve change by relying on the selfishness of human nature. So if you can appeal to selfishness, then what's stopping you from bringing about the change you want to see?
Well, that's the problem, right? Is that profit is the only thing that drives innovation, unless you're a pre-made rich guy who's just going to decide that you're going to innovate for your own altruistic purposes, like Elon Musk, for example.
No, Elon Musk is making a hell of a profit from SpaceX.
But the thing is, SpaceX. What the problem is, though, is that when profit is the primary and almost only motive, you've sort of invested yourself in a really outdated system, because not only are you saying that, renewable energy has to be profitable for us to actually change the world, but you're not allowed to take away anything that's destroying the world in the first place. Like, there is no way that renewable energy will ever be able to compete with oil.
I don't know, look what happened to the tobacco industry when people realized cigarettes are bad for you. In many developed countries, it kind of got screwed over by, taxes and propaganda campaigns and whatnot. And another problem facing renewable energies is this. Within 5 to 10 years, we're going to start seeing planned obsolescence. Solar panels they'll be like, you want these solar panels? They'll work for 5 years and then they're going to break. Hope you enjoy that. Because otherwise these companies... Really? You doubt it?
No, I don't think so. I think that, to be honest with you, though, the problem that we're dealing with, though, is that profitability also equals efficiency. It equates to efficiency in this issue. And at the moment, the renewable resources in general are actually not efficient as viable production methods. So China's manufacturing large amounts of solar panels. They're doing a lot for renewable energy, but the reality is that it's still marginal compared to the fact that they're opening up a new coal-fired power plant every week in China to actually make up their energy demand. The reality is that the world needs to be working more on those middle ground technologies, working on the mass things, which is actually why I think that Australia in general is really quite stupid to be completely forgetting and negating nuclear energy as an option.
Yes.
In Australia, I think that
before we go any
to
further, is anyone in this room against nuclear power? Anyone? Speak now. For
Don't
the
be
whole
shy.
group.
I see no hands. That's what I like to see.
It didn't cause a reaction.
Yeah. Excellent.
We're all in the nuclear.
Well, the bottom
You're
line
going to
is
need a
that
3 Mile Island.
as long as oil is your primary dependent source for energy, all you get is just this entire world scheme where you just produce war, poverty, collusion, corruption, threaten the environment, every aspect of our existence.
I'm really looking forward to when all those tiny little Gulf states get screwed over.
That was a quote, by the way, from
Those
very intelligent man.
Wow.
Those FIFA bribing bastards. Qatar doesn't have a freaking soccer team. All they want is the money and the prestige from hosting the World Cup in their stadium built with slave labor.
Awesome. Zave,
Anyway,
tell us about
speaking
Anti-Flag.
Okay, so Anti-Flag is a punk band from America. They've been around for about 20 years. They produce some pretty radical stuff. Not musically radical, but lyrically.
totally radical, man.
And they've released a new album called American Spring, kind of
like
comparison
Arab Spring,
to the Arab
but
Spring.
different.
They're trying to inspire a revolution in America, in the West. And one of the tracks off that new album is called Skies Falling, and it's about drones and kind of the fear and anxiety that produces
Just a quick question.
communities under attack by these drones.
Was that track sung by Chicken Licken?
No.
Your jokes are way too
I
niche.
got no idea
Hamish.
where you're going with that.
No, there was that one children's story about the chicken who was terrified the sky was falling, who ended up getting eaten by a fox. Yeah,
That's Chicken Little.
Chicken Little.
Let's go to it.
Chicken Licken's
Yeah.
the Colonel.
Anyway,
Oh, well. Sorry, I haven't read children's books in years. My mum's a preschool teacher. She had one called that, I think.
This is anti-flag.
Hello, and welcome back to Political Party, the show where we're not being replaced by artificial intelligence.
yes.
And speaking of artificial intelligence, it's time to talk about our next apocalyptic topic, the singularity. Anyone seen Terminator or any other such robot apocalypse movie? Because that is basically the product of the singularity. Singularity is the point where, according to, is it Moore's law? Where, like, transistors keep doubling?
Yeah, Moore's.
Okay, so, basically, computing power doubles every so often, and as a result of its doubling, we are eventually going to hit a point where computers become much smarter than humans.
But I have to actually jump in there because Moore's law has been altered a bit because we found that there's a certain distance between two transistors where no matter how small we get,
Hi, the new...
electricity is unable to jump from one to the other. So there's actually a point where we can't do any more. But building on Moore's law, there are more things that we can talk about that do involve the doubling of computer power over time. So yeah, continue please.
You know my favourite part about your accent? It's the fact that your face is completely straight. You're not even smiling a tiny bit. It's like you do this all the time.
Emily can tell you that I do. I do this a lot.
Well,
it's
Kevin
practically my
Angus
second native
McLong.
accent.
Of all the
He's-
accents, Scottish is the best. I approve.
It's a lot of fun. Actually, in high school, my name was McChen, my nickname.
Chen.
McChen. Even though my last name is not Chen, they called me McChen because it sounded funny. Anyway,
I
continue.
reckon we can find you a Scottish clan name
Back
that
to
fits better.
robots.
Back to robots.
robots.
Back to the singularity. So the singularity is where artificial intelligence becomes super intelligent, and then it will do several things. It may decide that humans are the main threat, like we saw in Age of Ultron, and try to make them go extinct by killing them off with nuclear weapons, robots. Just choose. There's plenty of choices for, like, apocalyptic robots.
Pick your choice of death.
It may decide we're basically ants to be ignored and be like, yeah, whatever, let them do what they want. It may, like, lock us up. There are all sorts of things an intelligence could do to us. And
Or
with
it could integrate with human, like, biological intelligence. That would be cool.
wink, integrate.
Whoa.
Anyway,
What?
never mind.
Sex robots.
Actually, there was one game I played years ago where the premise was that, like...
With sex robots.
No. That wasn't quite what I was saying. Could you imagine how bad that would be if the robot apocalypse was caused by malfunctioning sex robots?
Oh god.
That'll like
Clap
90%
things.
be the cause though, because that's where the technology is going.
Damn it, Japan, frickin' slow down. I
Oh
know
fuck, it's not supposed to bend that way.
Damn it, Japan, I know what you've been developing. Stop before it's too late. But yeah, so there are these lovely, wonderful robots, and there was something I was going to say, but I've kind of forgot. Oh yeah, that's right. In one game, the premise was that there was a war between people who wanted to remain humans and people who thought human intelligence should be like put onto computer chips, so it'd be forever immortalized as robots. So that's another thing that could happen in the future with singularity, because we'd figure out how to do this and become like, basically computer chips. But that requires duality to be true, so that our consciousness can be transferred from our brains to the chips.
We're worried about
Anyway, that's-
population increase via increased aging, but
That's it. No, here's the thing.
Fitting
when
mortality
you
is a whole new
digitize every
question,
human
yeah.
ever,
That's the very opposite then.
Robotics will help you a lot with aging because you'll be able to build like exosuits for them, so you'll have iron pensioner.
and you'll have all new ways to put your oil into.
Exactly. Beautiful. Exactly. So the singularity is basically, look, it could be the end of humanity, or it could just be meh.
Or it could be like a whole new era about understanding of humanity.
It could be,
Yeah.
because the thing with once the robot reaches singularity, it will know how to make itself more intelligent. So it could just make itself exponentially more intelligent.
Right, but
And then enslave us.
Yes.
do you think that maybe we would be able to integrate such to the point where we create a new species? So instead of being Homo sapiens, we're Homo robo sapiens.
Borg. It's gonna happen, guys.
Borg.
We're gonna
know,
start building the cubes.
But then again, that plays into the idea of a duality. Or maybe it'd be the point where the singularity only exists as in terms of intelligence, but there's a duality in terms of the physical sort of, you need a body and you need as well machinery to work these things.
Why do I keep bringing up premises from games? But there was one game in which another part of the premises was where, like, some people had, like, artificial intelligence put into their brains. They became super smart. Maybe that's what we're going to see. Because, like, you can buy...
plays games.
Oh, what gave you that idea?
Yeah, what did give you that idea, I wonder?
Yeah, there's a really... to bring up the topic of games again, there's a really good game series called Deus Ex. It's a classic, and there's a new one coming out. But it's about when humans start, welding robotic limbs to ourselves, and nanotechnology and all that kind of like genetic modification.
I don't care if you like games. If you're interested in this kind of philosophy and ethics, go play Deus Ex.
It's almost
because
an art form
it
in
hits
itself.
all these issues on the head.
But it's about like creating like a divide between humans that can afford to do this and become smarter and stronger and better, and humans that can't, and and the underclass that can't afford to do this, and how this will cause a divide in our species.
It's like
And
that.
it's really interesting in itself. Yeah.
If you really want to go and find out a bit more about singularity, what I can recommend as like a crash course is there's quite a few videos online on YouTube about
Video
singularity.
number 1, Terminator.
Okay, maybe it's not like a documentary, but I recommend looking at it anyway. Other than that, there's some great podcasts by howstuffworks.com. I recommend looking at them.
Yep.
And also look into Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. There are people who've sort of integrated the two concepts and have talked about, how does his laws of robotics fit into the idea of a singularity? And I think it's very interesting.
Actually, shameless plug, some more of Asimov's books are very good on different issues, because there's one where, like, it's called Foundation, where the premise is, like, this one dude managed to figure out that human society, their actions can be predicted through maths, because they will do certain societal trends. And it's just really cool, that whole premise. So if you want to, like, look into the future, read books like Foundation, like Dune, because these, just shameless plug with Dune is amazing, because these science fiction writers know what they're talking about. Sometimes. Like, the good science fiction books are good because they provide you with a plausible look at what the future could look like.
I just had a Velociraptor moment where I realized that in order to predict the future, often we have to look into the past.
Yes. That's so deep, it could have gone up on freaking...
Don't say it.
It could have gone up on Jaden Smith's Twitter feed.
Mother...
Well,
I
what
think...
about drones?
About drones.
What about drones once they become
drones,
autonomous?
Drones will become the soldiers of the singularity.
Correct.
But also, it's really cool, because with drones, you're starting to see, again, the video games, you're starting to see interfaces that are borrowed from video
Please pick
games.
a different reference.
To control drones. Like,
You're seeing...
nowadays, with the Tyrannus drone, which is developed by British Aero Engineering, that drone can actually be ordered around. It can take off by itself, fly around by itself. You just order it where to go. You don't need to constantly control it. And then it will choose its own targets. And you're like, right, I want you to blow this up and this up and this up. And then the drone will do it. And then it'll go back to base.
But as long as there's a human input between, the targeting and the killing,
I think what we really need
is what we need to
we
maintain.
cannot allow the robot to
that's
choose
it.
their own targets, because if we do, it's all over.
And also, it's open to, manipulation, hacking, that kind
That's
of
the
stuff.
problem with drones in
Which
general,
would be
though.
terrifying.
You can't use drones in an environment with legitimate electronic warfare threats. You can't, because they're too vulnerable.
Yeah,
if
but-
Iran was able to hack a drone, this is Iran. Try using them against China and Russia.
I find there's a huge problem with this, because even though drones seem to be the future for what we're going to do with robotics, but the problem we have is that we require this human firewall between the input and the output. The problem is, if it's hacked in between, it's out of our hands. So even having a human firewall is, in fact, a flaw in itself, because we allow room for someone else to come in.
By the way, which part of Scotland is your accent from?
Oh, it's from all over the bloody place.
Nah, it's not from Edinburgh.
No, it's not from Edinburgh, no.
Edinburgh.
Small Glaswegian.
Putting the bra in Edinburgh. Nah, Glaswegian is one of my favourite accents, though.
You know what? I'm actually not sure. I have to speak to a real Scottish person to find out, because my accent comes from, I had 2 teachers in primary school who were Scottish, so it's sort of a mix of what they spoke to me like. So
it's a shame. My dad's a Scot, but he's got like the Edinburgh accent, which is hardly Scottish. It's more like English.
It's nearly English, yeah.
Great Scott.
Yeah. Hey. And then both his siblings end up with mild Scottish accents. That's kind of annoying.
Speaking of beautiful accents,
Speaking of annoying,
we've got a
segue.
we've got a song about drones. This is Muse, The Handler.
hello everyone, and welcome back to Political Party, the show where we talk about the apocalypse. Coming up on this apocalypse, the zombie apocalypse. Now, we do have considerable experience with dealing with zombies. After all, the room is full of them. Shots fired. So... Sorry, I'm just receiving. I'm just receiving death threats from a lot of the other members. So, anyway, let's go on with it and talk about the zombie apocalypse. So, also, I believe one of our guests has not introduced themselves.
True, I haven't come on yet. Yeah, Emily.
Emily.
Is that what are people saying? They're just names? Or?
Yeah, I think it's just names. There's too many people for
No,
you
yeah,
to, like,
BPM Wednesdays,
biography.
guys.
go into who you are, what you do.
BPM.
What?
I'm just advertising our show.
Yeah.
Shameless plug.
Go ahead. Look, do all the
Their
Their
shameless
show
pluggery.
is way less politically intense, to
As
say
someone-
the least.
We get crashed by Tim a lot.
Yeah.
As someone who shamelessly plugs at every possible opportunity, go ahead.
There we go. We're good then. Yeah, zombies.
Zombies.
Actually, well, the interesting thing is I don't really follow. I've never watched Walking Dead or any of those. But
As if.
Nor have I.
yeah, I'm
It's all good.
sorry.
No, I played
don't-
Left 4 Dead a while ago.
Yeah,
That's
I don't
all.
really play games either. I'm sort of out of it. I play Plants vs Zombies. Just
Ha.
like.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, no. Genuinely in nature, for example, there are bacteria that affect insects.
bloody
basically turning
cordyceps.
them to
Have you seen what happens
zombies.
to spiders that get cordyceps? They get like fungus start growing out of their legs. It's the creepiest
Yeah,
thing.
there's a fungus that like takes over an ant's brain, makes it walk
Yeah.
into a.
Onto the
more-
top of a pile of grass so a
onto a
bird
leaf.
eats it.
Oh no, there's another one that just takes it to a warm place and then it kills the ant, and then
Yeah.
another bacteria comes and sort of sprouts out of its head. And
This
they-
kills the ant.
Yeah, there's also a kind of worm that takes over a cricket's
Yeah,
body.
yeah, and makes it like I know there are parasite worms that go out and make creatures
It
commit
like grows,
suicide.
it like goes into this like sort of cavity in the cricket's stomach,
Yeah.
grows until it's like up to a foot long inside the cricket still, then makes it go to the water.
Imagine if
And crickets can't
parasites.
swim, so it just basically
Yeah.
makes it.
Imagine if parasites became sentient and they started taking over humans, and you couldn't tell who was a human and who was controlled by a parasite. That'd be terrifying, but awesome at the same time.
Actually, a book,
Isn't that like the
Parasitology by
plot
Mira
from
Grant.
Ratatouille?
controlling something else. You can't tell.
Actual undead zombies are fairly impossible because the
Yes.
brain needs to be neurologically active.
It's not
to-
just the brain.
Well-
It's like the entire body is going to
Yeah.
start rotting. Crows are going to come and eat you. Bacteria are going to come and eat you. You're just going to... It's really not going to go very well for you.
The
But,
way
like,
that
the
they
disease model.
conceptualize it on The Walking Dead, even though it may be scientifically impossible, if we expand our understanding of humanity for a second, the way they explain it at the end of the first season is that the body has died, although there is still this, this electro, what do you call it? Like the electro impulse charge stimulating the brain stem,
Neurotransmission.
which mobilizes basic human movement.
What
Yeah.
about cells and stuff? It needs to keep the cells alive.
Well, no, the cells die, but the thing still
That's
moves.
the problem. The cells die. Because if the cells die, they'll be eaten by, like, things. They'll die. If the immune system stops working, it's all over.
This is my theory. I don't think that the zombie apocalypse is going to be walking corpses. I think there's going to be a super virus that infects people and alters the way, like, their agency, their ability to
Sentient
act,
parasite,
and
guys.
over time, if a zombie apocalypse were to happen, it would be caused by a super virus.
Yeah, I agree.
Which would
So-
be really terrifying, but at the same time, really cool.
Let's do a round. Is the zombie apocalypse possible, and if so, what will cause it?
Well, it depends what you're calling a zombie apocalypse. If you're saying that there's some sort of virus that is going to make people not in control of their own minds,
Yeah, well, it's up to you to define it.
yeah, I'd say it's possible, but it would very much depend, I think, on the situations, like, government bureaus who are ready for it and whatever. Because I know that there are actual zombie apocalypse plans, like emergency plans given by official.
Yeah, there's, like,
Organizations
massive
and-
shelters in the USA that people have dug out under the ground
Yeah.
where they can go and hide. Or, like, they bought
There's,
abandoned missile silos and, like, yeah, this is our
There's
zombie
also
shelter.
I can't remember which university it was, but some scientists modelled how long an outbreak would take to take over. I think it was based in the US, but they were looking at how many days it would take to reach each place based on steps by the zombie, based on bites by the zombie, or based on how it's transmitted, if it's bodily fluids or if it's air transmitted. And they sort of had, after 28 days, the worst place to be will be the small towns between the big cities. And, they had all these, yeah.
Surely the worst place would be
plans.
the big cities because that's where the densest
Well, no,
concentration
that's where it
of
is,
zombies
yeah, at the start. But after
Oh,
28
at the start.
days...
Oh, that's fair enough.
Yeah, after 28 days, stay out of the towns that are between the big cities, guys.
So is
Yeah.
it just because
Jessica.
they're transit points then?
Something like that, yeah. Just the zombies will leave
Okay.
the cities looking for other things. And apparently the Rocky Mountains are the safest place to go and invent a cure while you're...
It always
Yeah.
seems to be the really desolate places.
Yeah.
The model I've seen that I always thought was really interesting for a zombie apocalypse was sort of the unintended consequences of science. So one science fiction book that I read...
Gene tech.
No, it was actually the idea that a combination of a cure for cancer and the common cold intersected...
Is this I Am Legend?
This is
No,
I Am
this
Legend.
is not
Dude,
I
my
Am
dad's
Legend.
name is literally
What's it
Robert
called?
Neville.
It's called Feed by Mara Grant.
Pardon, sorry, what?
Feed by Mara Grant. The thing is, one of those cures was accidentally released, and the idea is that because the two were never tested in combination, when they get out there, they form something that essentially like waits dormant in the body until you die. So everyone is infected. It's just a matter of when you cark it.
Oh.
Fair enough. That's
And that's the zombie apocalypse model I've always found most interesting.
I
'cause it
love-
That
sticks
sounds like the
around
plot of
after
The Walking
outbreak.
Dead.
I love how all these companies that develop this stuff always have names like Gene Tech or Future Tech or something like that. It's like don't
Skynet.
name, if you
Okay,
name your
there was
company
an
that.
actual company that called itself Skynet.
No, yeah, it's
and
a
they
British
made robots.
British satellites.
Why?
Yeah, British satellites.
Why? That
Why
is
not?
tempting fate. That
Everyone's
is
going to want to buy
tempting fate so
Skynet
much.
now. Are you kidding me? They've seen what it could do.
We're doomed. Humanity is doomed because we love plants.
Here's the thing. Zombies are no... Zombies... I'm okay with that, guys. After all, the ability to destroy something is what grants you absolute power over it. Dude.
That sums up the world as it is right now.
But... freaking... Oh, there's something I was going to say again. But, wait, excuse me while I try to remember what it was.
It's okay, it's exam period. Like, no one's
Oh, that's
thinking
right.
straight.
Zombies are on a constant search for brains, making them not too dissimilar from your average Monash University student.
Wow.
There we go.
Nice.
I'm just going to jump in and point out that zombies have to eat brains in order to reproduce. But that's also how they feed. So the difference between food and sex. That's all I'm going to say.
Ah.
Right. Well,
Some
constant
science.
quest for sex, again, very similar to Monash students.
Oh, gold.
Yeah, no, I think in a real life zombie apocalypse, the brains thing is not.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think it'll
Not
just be
likely.
people in
So I think
general.
what
Yeah.
we've established today is that the zombie apocalypse is in fact the average university student, which means it's already happening.
Well,
Except the zombie will get up out of bed.
Oh, shots fired!
Hashtag stalker space.
because there are actually a lot of neurological conditions that are just caused by various forms of brain damage that do cause, for example, slurred speech, insatiable appetite. You know, a lot of things that are associated with zombies. There's no form of brain damage that encompasses all of these and turns someone into a, zombie as it appears in popular culture.
be
but-
lobotomized.
Biological warfare. What if they combined all of these diseases and
that'd be so
deliberately created zombies
could mind
to do the bidding of the dictators,
Oh, damn.
holding on to their last little
Oh.
bit of oil?
Oh damn, that'd be so cool, but
God.
terrifying
Oh.
at the same time.
I think you just
So,
like,
Mad Max
Hamish,
meets I
some
Am
people
Legend?
just want to watch the world burn.
No, what you do is you have it so that the bacteria affects their brain in such a way that they only obey one person. That's my plan for world domination, guys. I'm going to turn you all into zombies, and then
Are you
you'll only.
doing
heard it here
How
first.
exactly are you coding
Here's the
this
problem.
to
I'm
you?
going to need
That's
like
the problem.
doctors and stuff to do it for me, which means
Yeah.
the doctors will put fail safes in.
unless you just switch your degree now.
I could just kill them all myself
Goodbye, man.
before it goes live, and then it's all good.
A cult of med students and you're good, basically.
Yeah,
It sounds like the White Walkers from Game of Thrones and reanimating whites.
Game of Thrones. I'm really looking
Shameless
forward to this
plug,
episode.
Game of Thrones.
As someone who has read the
drops
books.
in 14 minutes.
As someone who's read the books, there is one thing in the book, in the 5th book. You guys who have read the books know what I'm talking about. I really hope it happens. It's going to be so controversial. I'm so excited about it.
Saying, like, implying a spoiler means that if you're talking about a spoiler of a spoiler, you're still fucking spoiling it.
No,
Guys,
no,
so
because
how
you
funny-
Go
might-
over there.
How funny was it when that one dude died? The one who everyone loved. Martell. Over in.
Shut up, we don't talk about that.
That Facebook. Oh my god.
Yeah, again, he's dropping spoilers. For anyone
No,
who's desperately trying to catch up on the show, we're just going to go to a song now. So
We are,
Hamish doesn't
to
tell us any
introduce
more
it.
about the future.
Guys,
So
Oprah Martell dies. Ned Stark dies. I've
Can we
got a
just like turn
spoiler.
off his mic?
Guys, I've got a
turn-
spoiler.
his mic's gone. No,
His mic's gone. There you go. It's off.
Jesus.
Guys, I've got a
He's pretty
spoiler.
intense on-
Jesus dies. Jesus dies. Shrek didn't check himself before he Shreked himself.
That was,
Anyway,
that was persistent.
The next song.
This song's called Zombie
It's all over
only
now.
because the metaphor is a zombie. It's actually about the ethno-religious conflict in Ireland. This is the Cranberries.
Hello,
This is
everyone, and
Blunder-gate.
welcome back to Political Party. This segment is Blunder-gate, the segment where we examine the mistakes made by our politicians, humorous or not. And in this case, it's humorous because our leader is kind of a joke. How Abbott that? What's you gonna do about that?
Please watch your tone.
Oh shit! That was double punch.
That's right, shots fired.
Ha 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 ha.
Shots missed, Hamish.
Allow me to introduce the context. So, what's been happening is that, as you are probably well aware, people smugglers have been smuggling people to Australia. What's happened is that, yeah, I know, it's a mind-blowing revelation, isn't it? What's been happening is that the Australian Navy has been authorised to turn back these boats by any means necessary, which, it appears, includes bribing the people smugglers to send the people back.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yes. No. So, this is the blunder that we are examining. Tony's ambiguity on the issue.
Yep.
Whereas Julie Bishop and one other minister, who was it?
Peter Dutton, the immigration minister.
They both categorically denied it. So, make of that what you will. What are your thoughts, chaps?
Blake, you can start.
Yeah, sure. Look, I think that it's something that I don't really think that we can talk about that much, quite simply because these are allegations. But at the moment, you've got the two ministers saying no, and you've got the Prime Minister saying, well, Lord knows what the Prime Minister is actually saying on this particular issue at the moment.
He's saying nothing.
Well, yeah, and I think
he hasn't
that,
accepted nor denied.
Yeah, to be honest, so what we really actually have, though, is a situation where there is actually no information that we can actually ascertain on this. There's a lot of investigation going on. There's investigation going on by the Australian government, investigation going on by the United Nations, and now I've just read this morning Indonesia's also opened up their own investigation into this issue. But the reality is, though, is that there is actually so little information about
It
this
seems like
particular
everyone
blunder.
but Tony Abbott is saying that this has happened, and the government, the Liberal government, denied the Tampa incident.
This is why the whole secrecy surrounding the boats issue is terrible. It's a terrible decision. It's undemocratic. It's hiding the truth from the people. Like, how he was allowed to do that and get away with it without being politically ripped apart.
Well, this is an issue of national security. I mean,
National security is the excuse made by the government when it wants to impose greater control over its citizens. When it wants to control our minds, then it says, but national security.
Right.
National
Well,
security.
for those of us but for those of us that don't wear tinfoil hats here, I think that, to be honest with you, the reality is that governments do invoke the secrecy of national security on a wide variety of issues. And the reality is, though, is that if we actually stop the consequence of not telling people that how many boats are coming, is actually working. The reality is that the secrecy, treating this as if it is a professional security operation, rather than kind of the amateur hour that we got under the previous Rudd Gillard and Rudd Light government, is actually effectively showing us all that actually treating it like a proper issue is working.
How do we know that there have been no boats? The government is not telling us how many boats have tried to show up on our shores. For all we know, there could have been thousands of them.
That's national security. You're not supposed to know that.
Fucked. No, but
Yeah.
national security is abused. Like, I just think this is an issue in general with Western governments, is that they'll say, we can't tell you about our surveillance regime, how we're surveying everything. By the way, what's up, DSD and CIA? Please don't hate me. Please don't run over me.
To be honest with you, though, I think that it's a little bit unfair to be going out and targeting Western governments using secrecy when, in actual fact, at least they have the decency to kind of actually tell you that
They have the
it's a
decency
secret.
to be transparent about the stuff that looks good.
They have a decency to be transparent about secrecy in that they'll tell you that something is secret, not just like a Middle Eastern or North Korean dictatorship, which is just kind of like, it doesn't even exist, won't even acknowledge the fact that they're punishing dissidents.
I keep forgetting that, like, these people in their countries aren't necessarily aware of what's going on, because to me it's just so blindingly obvious that their leadership is desperately censoring everything.
Okay, let me jump in because my people, the Chinese people, are very experienced with censor, okay? So I can tell you now that the Liberal government, what they do now,
It's not racist, guys, he's Chinese.
It's not racist because I'm Chinese, the whole community ownership thing. Okay, so as I was saying, so obviously Chinese government very good with censor. Very, very good. Very, very good. You know what's really funny? You know what's really funny? You know that how the Taiwanese the Taiwanese media company that really like to make the video to make fun of Western government, you know, that whole hypocrisy sort of thing. They did a piece on this. Comparing Tony Abbott to China. Holy shit! Who does that, man? Too far, man. Too far.
Well, look, given that Australia is being forced to like make closer ties with China, maybe the Chinese have taught Tony Abbott a thing or two.
Okay, maybe you can say that, but I also think that maybe the government is not totally to blame because the army has to the Navy has to take some responsibility because they has been authorized to do so, but they can make decision as to how they do it.
But Navy are concerned only with results. I mean, yes,
Precisely, they're only concerned with results. They will do it any way they can.
Some of the blame should go to them, but I really, like, it's the fault of the government for allowing them to do this, of authorizing it to do this. A soldier will do what they are told.
No, I'm sorry. I don't think that it's really that appropriate to be going and bashing soldiers and members of the Defence Force in general for doing actually a rather professional job on this issue. I mean, it was clear. It's been clear so far that any allegation of mistreatment, any allegation of hardship that's been brought against the Australian Defence Force in Operation Sovereign Borders or any other operation in that matter has been proven to be false.
Yes.
And in fact, you know, the ABC, we're still waiting for the apology on the issue at the moment, but the reality is, though, is that everyone has had to retract any statement made against it. I don't think that it's appropriate to go out saying that the Australian Navy is in any way, shape or form responsible for anything other than their own conduct when they're on the seas.
Correct.
This is a policy. This is a government
Yeah,
policy,
it is.
and
No.
I think and that's what we need to be working.
I think
unless they
what
abuse
Kevin
that,
was
though.
saying. No, what Kevin was saying was that they had the choice about whether or not to bribe the people smugglers or not. But again, they would have been authorized to do this by the government. The blame and responsibility should lie squarely with the government. It's good to see that Tony Abbott decided to reward the members of the military for their hard work by freezing their pay rises. Wait. Good on you, Jackie Lambie, standing up for good Australian values.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I just, as a general rule, though, I think that we need to be a little bit more respectful somewhat of the Defence Force, particularly on these issues. But also we need to respect the fact that this is an issue where no one really knows what they're talking about. We have an allegation that's out there on the waters as it is, but the allegation is actually as wobbly as the sea is itself. There is no
Well, it's
real
a
foundation.
huge allegation.
We go-
like
It is. And we go back to the
and it's
early-
being made by a lot of really reputable actors.
We go
Like,
back to the earlier
This is the
point.
same government that spied on one of its own senators because Sarah Hanson-Young went to Nauru to the detention centre, and the Liberal government spied on her
Well,
to
I-
find out what information she
now,
was
hang on,
bringing
before
back.
before
I
we
think
get-
the
Here's the
secrecy's
thing.
gone too far.
No, here's the thing. If the government was more transparent about this, these allegations would either be objectively true, objectively false. It is the veil of secrecy that the government has thrown over this operation that has permitted these allegations in the first place. So I think the real problem is, how the hell did we let them get away with withholding all this extremely vital information from the public in the name of national security?
I can't
This
believe
is
I
far
agree
more
with
than
Hamish.
national security. This is bloody disaster. We need someone in government leak this stuff. Get on it. And DSD, please don't arrest me.
And give us
guys,
the
I love you.
TPP while you're there. Thanks.
I think, to be honest with you, I think once again it's sensational. It's a sensationalization. That's even a word I don't know.
Nah, it is.
Sensationalizing. It's sensationalizing a non-issue. To be honest with you, I think that you guys are really taking this kind of this really out of proportion. But also, it's important to note that the government didn't instruct the Wilson Security or whichever the organization was that was actually monitoring that detention center to actually monitor Senator Sarah Hanson-Young. This was in actual fact an action that was done by the company and its employees itself. The government did not actually embark on this program. That's been made clear in government statements on this issue, except, of course, once again, one of our biggest issues, I guess you could say, with any politician in our modern era is the blunder. I think that politicians, particularly in Australia, can't get away with it. Also because when we blunder in Australia, we're not too good at it. It's not like in America where Joe Biden goes in front of the National Insurers Agency and says, "I've never stood in front of a bunch of people I've hated more."
He's been biding his time for a while.
Yeah.
Side note, I believe were you interested in coming on the show next semester?
Yes, I
Because
was.
if you were, then that's going to be really good having the completely opposed points of view.
Yeah. Look, again with. But again, I think that, to be honest with you, blunders in Australian society, blunders in the Australian government and politics in general, we need to be working more on A, polishing our message a lot more on these things, B, hire a press secretary or two. But then finally, on top of that, though, I think that Australians just need to laugh a bit more at government. But also, once again, as a democratic country, perhaps become a little bit more open about this stuff.
I miss you, Chase's War and Everything.
Avanti,
And speaking of War and Everything, we are moving on to our next song, which is Rage Against the Machine's Ashes in the Fall. A song about, I don't know, is it a post-apocalyptic society? Either way, it's a song about how...
the future.
Yeah, it's about how, it's about how
Divisions
education
of
is
race,
diminishing,
class,
factories
education.
are closing, resulting in the jail cells opening to swallow you up like the Reaper. And yeah, it's really cool. Anyway, enjoy.
We love our
Unless
rage
you're on the
at this
podcast,
show.
in which case, screw you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Political Party. Coming up now, we have...
Less Sexy Than ISIS, with a twist. So this semester, we've had a segment called Less Sexy Than ISIS, where we
Wait,
talk
no.
about all the...
Isis is the goddess of fertility in ancient Egypt. Doesn't that make her very sexy?
ISIL, whatever.
Daesh.
I get the joke, though.
to
So,
hear.
and we've spoken about all the issues that ISIS has overshadowed in news about the Middle East, and so we got through a lot of stuff
Yeah,
like
man.
anti homosexual propaganda legislation in Kyrgyzstan, and the use of
That's such a
chlorine
gay
gas.
topic.
Sorry,
Anti-homosexual laws. Such a gay topic.
yeah.
Is that a pun?
Yes.
Gnasps. Gay is not a synonym for shitty. So, we don't want ISIS to come and kill us. So we are going to give you a recap of everything that happened with ISIS during Less Sexy Than ISIS starting now. The US stocked Jordan with weapons to fight ISIS. Hezbollah tried to unite every state in the Middle East to fight against ISIS and failed. ISIS and Boko Haram became best buddies. ISIS took Tikrit. ISIS lost Tikrit. The Pentagon said taking Tikrit from them would be offensive, and then bombed them.
It's the Turks.
ISIS did or did not use chlorine gas on civilians in Iraq, and then the same in Syria. ISIS popped up in Libya, and then in Lebanon. They committed genocide against the Yazidi, and the UN called them out, and they were like, nah, fuck that, man, we didn't do that. Cultural
didn't do that.
imperialism. Then ISIL and Al-Qaeda broke up. It was really sad. They had a formal, breaking up of ties, and it was then they rebounded with Al-Shabaab, and then there was a beheading. Suicide attacks in Benghazi, twice in a week.
I guess they really lost their head over that.
Oh. An Aussie family was recruited. Multiple of these happened. ISIS lost to Tikrit. The US offered the equivalent of Australia's entire aid budget to displaced Iraqis from ISIS. The Pentagon said ISIS were losing ground. Then they were wrong, and then they were right. ISIS took Anbar. ISIS failed to genocide the Kurds, sort of. The US Special Forces killed leader Abu Sayyaf. ISIS took Palmyra and destroyed ancient ruins and museums. Australia threw dollary dues at ISIS in the budget. ISIS allegedly popped up in Sudan and Mali. A beheading again. ISIL celebrated the 1-year anniversary of Mosul with a festival, much to the dismay of the US, and the US apparently spent $9 million a day fighting ISIS.
Well, that's impressive, eh?
So a lot's happened.
Actually, some really crazy stuff has been happening with Turkey helping out ISIS. They're providing power to cities owned by ISIS, buying ISIS oil, selling ISIS weapons. The Turks see ISIS as a way to fight the Kurds, because the Turks, they're sick of doing their own genocides. They want other people to do it for them after what happened last time.
Oh my
Hashtag
god.
remember Armenia.
Hashtag remove kebab. Sorry, what?
Wow.
No.
I don't
I'm
think
just
that's
hoping
necessarily
most
To
of
relevant
doesn't
the,
get
to
that
the
joke.
non-Reddit user, one would find that joke quite racist.
Yeah.
Nah, but we should get the Serbians in on it.
Oh.
They're experts.
Okay.
And maybe we should be moving on now.
Yeah,
Maybe we should be. My apologies to all Serbians.
So what, how about that
You're all
weather
cool.
we're having, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely weather, eh?
Lovely weather caused by global warming.
Are we off the air yet? Or-
So let's so
We've what we're going to talk about the future of the Middle East from this. Yeah, that's all right. I can edit that out. We're going to talk about the future of of the Middle East. Is ISIS going to take more ground? Are they going to fail? Is the Middle East going to continue to be a hotbed for proxy warfare, etc.? Zave, what do you think?
In the foreseeable future, yeah, definitely, because there's so many diametrically opposed factions and so much religious animosity between, different groups and states.
Yeah, it isn't exactly looking sunny for things over there.
No, it's a bit shite. But but yeah, especially with so much energy and oil politics going on, there's so many great powers that have a stake in it that it's just, it's definitely.
I
gonna
guess
be a
with
hotbed of
oil,
conflict.
they're getting directly to the point.
Yeah, very much so.
Oh. Awkward silence at 10:43.
If by awkward you mean silently appreciating my sense of humor, I'm just being stared down. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, I think that there's this ongoing conflict in the Middle East has been happening for hundreds and hundreds of years. It was perhaps perpetuated by imperialism and countries are just lines
People
drawn
with
in the
rulers
sand with
making
a
borders.
stick. It's very ambiguous and groups together a lot of perhaps conflicting
What do you
ethnicities.
mean
and-
perhaps conflicting?
well,
They hate each other's guts.
but the whole theory about if this didn't cause that conflict, something else would. Do you want to talk to us about that, Hamish? No.
No, it's simply that religion is not inherently going to cause conflict. Religion, like some people say, religion causes more conflict. It doesn't.
It absolutely does.
No, it causes, okay, religious conflict would have happened for other reasons than religion if religion wasn't a factor. Even if it was ideology.
No, but it's a great tool for motivating a populace and rallying up.
So is ideology.
hatred.
And it seriously
Exactly.
changes
Religion
the scale of
is
conflict.
Ideology is an inevitable product of humanity, and so is religion.
It seriously changes the scale of conflict, though, because more people can rally around something when someone else is randomly preaching it in a bisque temple.
Guys, isn't communism great?
No.
Well, the communists
Of
are
course
atheists,
not.
but, you know.
Socialism, let the workers unite and rise up
Communism
and overthrow.
is not socialism.
Let the workers unite, rise up and overthrow the government.
Shut
People
up, you
preach
peasant.
that. People preach that, and it had the same level of potency as religion. It
No, I
divided
see
the
where you're
world
coming from.
cleanly in
It's-
two.
It's a very good point.
But the point was it then denied the absent... bloody hell, I can't English.
You're freaking religious. Why are you doing this?
Because I agree that it caused serious conflict. Look, in
But
Europe
ideology-
it took a blasted conference and serious death tolls to get them to stop trying to murder Protestants and Catholics and
Yeah, well, it
Methodists
took
and
the
what
complete
have you.
annihilation of fascism to stop people from murdering other ethnicities.
Well, no, because
Well-
ethnic cleansing still exists in our modern era.
I mean, like in Europe.
Well, no, within Europe itself, yeah, sure, we've finally
Western
seen the
Europe.
disintegration. We've finally seen the end of genocidal tendencies within communities. Though that being said, if you want to talk about it, the modern era's the rise of genocidal kind of maniacs within Europe is also starting to rise. We're still seeing the largest influx of Jewish populations from France to Israel at the moment because they don't feel safe within the French communities.
that was as a result of the Charlie Hebdo attacks.
Well, no, it's not even just a consequence of that. It's
Charlie
also
Hebdo?
because of a series of attacks on synagogues within synagogues, Jewish schools, and other Jewish community
'cause
centers
people-
within France continuously over a long period of time in both France and Belgium. And to be honest with you, it's just quite sad because in Australia we're really not hearing about exactly how bad the situation is for the Jewish community within Europe, or in actual fact for the
Yeah.
Jewish community on the whole around the world still.
I don't know. Jewish community in Australia is pretty good.
Well, yeah, they live in a relatively safe. They live in a relatively safe world here. I definitely think that that's the case. But we're one country, and it'll get to a point though, where it will start to become harder for members of this community to continue living in relative safety. And we're going to continue seeing fundamentalist kind of movements being permitted to establish themselves within some communities in Australia. Not just Muslim. There's also some Christian
It's
movement.
because of what Israel's doing. A lot of people are taking offense with Israel's attacks in Gaza to the point where they start hating all Jews, not just Israelis.
I think that-
taking offense.
Yes, no,
Borders.
it's clearly nonsense. Jews
Don't do puns, Tim.
Jews should not be blamed for the actions of Israel, but frickin' people do anyway.
Yeah, and 9/11 was an inside job.
Voice out of
Ben
nowhere,
Lee
here's
is
Ben.
in
Ben
the house.
show.
He's 20 today. Happy birthday,
Happy
dude.
birthday,
Birthday,
Benny.
From Political Party. What does the future hold for the Middle East, Ben?
Well, look, it's
Speaking
like
in the mic.
everyone's at the pub and the barman said, I've only got 2 pots left. And there's like 7 blokes that all want to get their load on, and it's just a massive fist fight, you know?
I unfortunately have to consider that extremely salient at this point.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow, that summed it up perfectly. Good,
Yeah, it's
good job
deep.
there, Ben. Will ISIS make ground, or will they fail?
They'll probably fail.
Our
eventually.
empire's built to fall.
They need to seek recognition as a legitimate state if they want to, like,
And
survive.
nobody is going to give it to them.
Oh, no, Turkey is.
Well, no,
Besides the Turks.
Turkey's definitely not going to recognise them because they also recognise that that they don't like them either. They don't like the Islamic State has fundamental issues with some of what Turkey believes. They don't like the fact that women are actually recognised as human beings in Turkey. They don't like the fact that people actually get to open their mouths in Turkey. They don't like the fact that there are in actual fact non-Muslims in Turkey. They don't like the Turkish. They don't like the fact that it's called Turkey. They don't like the fact it's gobble gobble and everything like that. Anything associated with Turkey whatsoever, be it animal, vegetable, or mineral. Well, yeah, they don't also like that Ottoman legacy. They want their own. The Islamic State's going to continue to exist because for a long period of time, quite simply because we've lost our moral kind of a backbone to actually intervene in these countries. I couldn't think of a clearer, more straightforward moral case to intervene in a foreign nation than what's going on in the Islamic State, unless Hitler rocked up tomorrow in the Islamic State and started working with them, along with some of the guys from Rwanda. It is a genuine issue that we're not paying attention to in the Western world, and I think it's actually quite terrible. I don't think that we can continue to stand for anything regarding social justice. I don't think that we can continue to advocate for women's rights or gay rights or anything like that in our own countries until we actually recognize that there is a group of people that we are permitting to not only be oppressed, but living in a vacuum where they're losing rights daily.
Saudi Arabia. That's right. I
So,
went there.
We should intervene in Saudi Arabia, is what you're
What we
saying.
should do is not support these Gulf states and their stupid, oppressive monarchies.
But
they have
if
the oil,
you don't
Hamish.
support the Gulf states and their monarchies, therefore you're not supporting their oil and you destroy capitalism.
No, neck minute solar panels and nuclear power.
Not from Saudi Arabia.
No, not from Saudi Arabia. Screw the Saudis. They're going to buy Pakistani nuclear weapons.
Speaking
They
of
can
Gulf
damn well
states,
try.
Emily's going to tell us about Enter Shikari.
Yeah, Enter Shikari is a band from Britain that
Oh, yes,
sort
Britain.
of more or less from the start have been using their music as a way to put some really strong political and otherwise very deeply motivated messages into their music. This is System and Meltdown, which is from their 2012 album, the first 2 tracks that sort of blend into each other. It's a good song. Good song.
Let's enter.
Tim's been quoting
I've been quoting
various
this song
things
subconsciously throughout
through
the whole
this entire
episode.
segment about the countries. Yeah.
System Meltdown.
Bill. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Political Party. Coming up this segment, the stupid segment where we do parody news. And speaking of stupid, happy birthday, Ben. So,
This is our final segment for Political Party.
so
for this
let's get started.
semester, by the
Parody
way.
news. I read the article, you guess what it is. Everyone in the studio is involved. You can't see them now, but they're all here, crowded around all the various microphones we've got. So, let's start with... God damn it. Stop cheating, Kevin. You can see my phone.
Alright,
So, let's get started with article number 1. FIFA's $29 million feature film has $607 of box office take.
Absolutely
That's
true.
This is
That's
definitely
true.
true.
Has to be true.
It's false. It's got to be.
It's true.
And you know what the best thing is? That film was only released in cinemas in Serbia. Only in Serbia. It was DVD everywhere else.
Yeah.
Serbia strong.
And
So,
it's quite sad, really, to be honest, because it's got such a great acting group. It's just basically they've got all the best people from television and movies to come together and make a movie that no one wants to watch.
That's because it's about the people like behind FIFA, not the sports stars, but the actual organizers.
speaking of
just
stuff,
soccer's
no one.
boring.
Speaking of stuff,
Oh.
no. Hey, shots fired.
Yeah,
Speaking of stuff. Speaking of stuff, no one outside its host country wants to watch Australian rules football.
Oh,
Yeah,
don't
get
talk
out.
shit about footy.
Anyway,
Oh,
let's
but then
move
again,
on.
the AFL did have the International Cup.
Probably like one
Yeah,
team
all
showed
three,
up.
all three
all
nations.
So, let's move on. Next article. Snoop Dogg campaigns for Twitter CEO position as Dick Costello steps down.
I hope that's true.
That's true.
False.
That's true.
False.
It's false, sadly.
Nah, man, he would have just rolled himself one massive split, and he's like, "Hey, man, you know what? I got the best idea, man."
I have a feeling based on what he smokes, he probably didn't even bother running for president. He just walked into the office and just said,
Well, chaps, it's true. Isn't that great? How about this? Voldemort is polling better than many Republican presidential candidates.
True. That's got to be true.
100% true.
Speaking of which, I believe in the article, a number of other leaders were also put forward first, like the shark from Jaws. Is actually
His name is Bruce, guys.
The Terminator and Darth Vader are also polling very highly, although we've already had the Terminator as a political leader, so there's that.
It's funny because it's true.
Yeah, exactly. So, next article.
God bless the uncle.
Next article is man forced to come up with 45 seconds of facial expressions while waitress lists off specials.
False, because I read that on the Onion the other day.
Damn it, Zayd! How do you do this? You are that guy.
That headline was too long to be clickbait, so it's got to be
true.
false.
True. Look, I think. Wait for it. I will come up with another article very soon. So, China is doing a tremendous job protecting human rights, says China.
True. Absolutely true.
If there's one person we can trust to say that, it's probably China.
They were of course backed up by the new chairs of the United Nations Human Rights Council, Saudi Arabia.
Guys, Canada's horribly racist. Never mind China, it's Canada. They're the real racist bastards.
Oh yeah,
This article's true, by the way.
Nice.
It's almost like North Korea, really. And how apparently the response in like North Korea to a report on their human rights is like, or once a while ago, it's like, yeah, we know we're bad, but America, you're even worse. Look at all this terrible stuff you're doing. We're so good. North Korea, yeah.
I like the fact though that when North Korea they called themselves a loving and tolerant country, and then proceeded to call Kirby a man-loving dog. It's lovely to see the dichotomy of North Korea.
How about this? Man's obituary accompanied by photo of him dressed as wizard.
Please be true.
That's true.
Definitely true.
Yeah, that's Christopher Lee. But
Okay,
it's too
so the
specific.
article
Yeah.
is false and from The Onion, but
Damn.
this is Christopher Lee we're talking about. What a gun!
Oh.
I think we ought...
Who released 3 heavy metal concept albums and
He was a
3
Nazi hunter as
and
well.
3
We need a
Christmas
moment of
EPs.
appreciation for Christopher
He's
Lee.
the best
'cause
heavy
he is
metal
a
voice
gun.
line ever.
Christopher Lee is
He's
such a
God.
cool dude. It's such a shame he's dead. He was so cool.
It's such a shame he's dead.
You couldn't say something like "rest in peace." You said it's such a shame he's
I already
dead.
said rest in peace, and I linked everyone one of my favorite videos.
my God.
trolling
Don't
Rick.
you just hate mortality? It's just
It's so bad, isn't it? This is why we should get on it,
Where's our
uploading everyone's brains into
technological
computers.
sentience
Upload everyone's
computers?
brains into computers. Trolling Saruman. Has anyone seen that? Where he's singing Trollahole? And like in the Hobbit, it's like the Lord of the Rings, and they're all saying like, "Shut up" or whatever, like what they're saying in the movie. Like, I've heard enough, and then Legolas shoots him, and then as he starts falling down the tower, he's like, "Ho ho 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 ho."
I think it's maybe only funny
And
to
then
you.
he's falling out, Trollahole.
And then he dies.
Yeah, it's so good. Anyway, speaking of which, it is time for our next article. FIFA advises female players unhappy with turf to spend more time in the air.
You know what? I could imagine FIFA saying that, but that's got to be The Onion.
I could
fully
definitely
believe this is
imagine
FIFA.
Sepp Blatter saying that. He
Yeah,
said that
FIFA
to
have
get
said worse.
Yeah, they
And that says
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, honestly, that's like less
That's less offensive than
than
some.
the
Yeah.
things they said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they said
Nah,
to get
look,
more people
it is-
watching women's soccer, make them wear shorter shorts.
Well, it looks like they really got the short end of the stick.
Yeah,
I tell you what though, they did that with the men's sport. I'm pretty sure they'd also get a few more fans too.
So, next article is Rich Californians balk at limits. We're not all equal when it comes to water.
True.
Yeah, true.
True.
They get a massive drought from there.
Yeah, that'd be true.
It is true. Bloody, ugh.
Nobody
it is-
think of the rich Californians.
Seriously, guys, Evian exports are going much higher than they should be.
Alright, how about this? Woman who claims she owns the Sun sues eBay after she was banned from selling Sun's plots on the site.
That's true.
Yes, that has to be
That
true,
happens,
please.
true. That happened.
Well, I mean, look, people have tried to sell the moon, so it's not that implausible, is it?
People have tried to sell New Zealand for $15.
Actually, here's something
Probably it's
funny.
going right.
True story. Brazil once put an aircraft carrier up on eBay. And the bidding got to like $3 million before
Russia
eBay...
sold a space station, a defunct space shuttle on eBay.
Oh, Buran? One of the Buran orbiters.
Probably.
Potentially, it was a space
It's so
shuttle.
cool, by the way. Buran was like the space shuttle, but it was capable of being fired completely remotely.
Yeah,
It's really cool. It's so sad that...
didn't buy it.
It was,
Hashtag drones.
yeah, it was a rather sad end to it, of course, because after the collapse of the Soviet Union, they put it in a shed in Kazakhstan, actually.
And the shed collapsed.
Yeah, and the shed collapsed. Which, once again, something about Russian ingenuity. They can build you a nice, durable kind of space shuttle, but they can't build a shed to house it.
Yeah. Report. Whites more likely to be named CEOs than equally sociopathic black candidates.
Onion.
Onion.
Probably true.
That's
CEOs are
onion.
sociopaths, though. It's guaranteed.
Yeah.
You've got to have literally no
Yeah,
empathy to be a CEO. You've got to do what the shareholders tell you. However, this article is from The Onion. But having said that, all our companies are in fact run by sociopaths.
And all our
This brought to you by Alfoil. Remember, when you need a hat, pick Alfoil.
now with the easy cut
By the
blade
way,
on the lid.
if Gazprom was to conduct a venture in Nigeria, would they call it Nigaz?
There is actually.
Nigaz?
Yeah, there's a company called Nigaz.
You're gonna get. I don't know.
I
if-
just got that one.
You know,
No,
they're gonna start creating licenses for the shows on student radio just so that they can pull yours for offensive.
Nah, look, it's all good. I like to think that I try to balance it out with all the offensive comments.
I like to
and
think that one day you'll become the Carl Sanderlands of Radio Monash.
be equal offense to everyone. So I hope no one feels I'm bashing them.
He hates everybody equally.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know. I think your Asian quote is a little down to that.
Oh no, it is, isn't it? Which is a shame because I could make so many jokes about their driving, as someone who lives in Mount Waverley and Glen Waverley.
And as a guy sitting next to an Asian guy, you might want to quiet down on that.
Nah, but mate, you live in Glen Waverley. It's actually the
No,
ghetto.
I live in Werribee.
It's the ghetto. Glen Waverley is the ghetto now.
I'm well aware. We hear the rumors.
Yeah, the middle class eastern suburbs is really the ghetto.
Yes, it is.
The outer suburbs, Steve.
Anyway, I think that's about all for this show and for
That's it.
Political Party in general.
Wait,
Thank
hold up.
you.
Can we play some like dope beats, man?
We are playing Dope Beats, don't we?
So, everyone, thank you for listening to our show. And next semester, I will carry on the show, but unfortunately, Tim will be gone. The new show.
I'm
the
so
show will be
offended by
rebranded.
Hamish's jokes. I'm physically going
Yeah.
across continents.
That's the real reason he's going to England. It's because I scared him away.
I guess you could say next semester will be out of Tim.
Oh! Hey, I like.
A new panelist.
Yes, no. So we've got plenty of. We've got multiple people who are willing to be co-hosts lined up. So things looking
Stay
bright for the
tuned.
future of the show. Stay tuned. Follow our Facebook page. Follow our YouTube page, and we will be. Remember, I'll be back. Political Party, putting the cool in political.
Thanks for listening, and this is a song that perfectly sums up today's episode. This is It's the End of the World as We Know It, and I Feel Fine by R.E.M.
Hey.